Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
Yesterday you were talking about ancestors, the knowledge of ancestors, how the wisdom of these ancestors is very important. You also told the number of children, 43 children, something like that, yesterday. I remember. So you have
Yes.
anything to say about how to actually get this wisdom of ancestors in the present world, where tribes are not living like tribes? The wisdom of tribes is not being continued, but getting modernized or globalized. The so-called globalization is almost destroying the wisdom of so many indigenous communities, not only in Africa, but every part of the world. So the indigenous wisdom, otherwise called as the traditional wisdom, has been most essential. And from the modern day perspective, it has been treated as something superstitious, something unscientific, something which doesn't work out in the modern scenario. So from this perspective, how do you think the traditional wisdom of Africa or otherwise, whatever traditional wisdom in whatever format, in whichever geographical mass it is coming from, how do you think we can revive this traditional wisdom, and how do we connect so many pockets of wisdom across the world? Meredith was talking about the 100th monkey experiment, the rat maze experiment. There are so many experiments which happened already in the world, which depicts, which illustrates, which has proven with great levels of evidence that wisdom of one place moves mysteriously, enigmatically, in a very ineffable way to other parts of the world to awaken them. How it moves, we don't know. A person who becomes wise in Micronesia makes a person wise who is living in Hawaii Islands, from Tokyo to Timbuktu, from America to Australia. Diagonally opposite places are also getting enlightened. So, how do you think the ancient wisdom, which so many people understand as only a theory, which so many people understand only as a concept, which so many people know only through texts and scriptures and treatises, without having any experience of it, how to convert this conceptual knowledge or intellectual knowledge into something called as experiential knowledge, how to make it experienced, fundamentally speaking, how to make it available from the point of modern scenario, so that the modern and the ancient blends and moves in a synergistic way, moves in a symbiotic way to create a hybridized human wisdom. This hybridization is very, very important. This hybridization of the ancient and the modern appears to be very, very important, especially for the modern day size of the population, the modern day chaos and clutter that people are experiencing. In the modern day busy schedules people are experiencing, I think this hybridization appears to be very, very important. From this perspective, I would like to request your inputs from the backdrop of traditional wisdom in the modern scenario. Vanja.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yugandhar. It was 43 wives, so many children out coming from those 43 wives from one person, which was kind of like the custom at the time. But coming back to connecting to ancestors, I think we all do it, first of all, individually. People who have experienced death or the passing of loved ones. Many people experience a connection with those departed. And it's a truth, it's a truth that we may in this modern world have been conditioned to overlook. So I'll give you an example. I had done a post about my father visiting me in my dreams, and it got picked up by the blogs in Kenya. And they were like, oh, we have to pray for her because, you know, she's getting these visitations from her father's departed soul, and this is a terrible thing. And I was like, what, what is this? What, you know, how have we been conditioned to react to things that are so natural like this in this way? They were basically saying that it's an unnatural thing and the priests need to pray for me so that there are no more dreams like this. This kind of brainwashing, because I saw that as, you know, some sort of religious brainwashing about a completely natural phenomenon that happened to me. But many people also experience the same thing. Oh yes, my, you know, this person who left me, my husband, my wife, my child, also comes to me in dreams. I think the more that we share these experiences, we help people remember, because it's truth. It's just truth. You know, we remain connected with our ancestors through feeling and sense. That is the experience. And I think that what a lot of these modern day religions have done is to control, to sort of keep people in this state of grief. You know, when you, there's a huge relief when you connect with your ancestors and questions that you have, understandings about your life and the world that we're living in, which is so complex and so complicated. There's so much information coming at us. But when you go into this space of wanting, it's with the intention that, I think it's the intention that leads first. It's this desire to connect, where they respond. It's almost like just asking, you know, come to me in whatever way. They could respond through bird song. They could respond through some natural way of communicating. But if you're attuned to that, and I think this is what in the modern world we need to do, step away from these devices, is nature, meditation, with the intention of connecting with the ancestors. You will connect with the ancestors. And I think trust downloaded, there's that need to also trust it, because like Alexander said, you know, people will condense it to hocus pocus. This is hocus pocus gibberish. But if you know, there's a knowing that is so cellular, knowing the truth, knowing an experience. You know, you talked about experience. It's that experience that cannot be denied. And having the courage to speak that, you know, having the courage to really, at a broader level, you know, we've been talking a lot. I think politics is another space where people publicly now start to bring into politics, into the conversations that leaders have with people, to bring this back as our traditional wisdom. How can you deny how can anybody deny the value of our traditional wisdom? And there is a difference between witchcraft and for dark purposes and what have you. I mean, even our ancestors knew the difference. You know, there were things that were forbidden because they were not inculcating this unity consciousness, this oneness, this fellowship, this brotherhood. You know, a lot of the themes that we've been talking about over the past few days. So I think I think it's just not being ashamed of talking about these things, because the truth will resonate. We have a resonance with our ancestors, you know, a morphic resonance, whatever it is, that spiritual thing, that connection. I think just having the courage to speak it, to talk about it, Yeah.
So thank you very much, Vanja. And I also would like to invite Meredith into discussion. Africa, since morning we have been discussing about the morphology of the human being, evolution of the human body and consciousness. Let us think about the evolution of Africa. First, geographical topography of Africa. We have got a very big, large desert called Sahara. We also have savannas. We also have Sahels, south to Sudan. The agricultural side, the vegetation side of these deserts, the transition period, transition geographical masses of desert to vegetation. Many scientists and even spiritual people say that Sahara was once a beautiful vegetative land. It has been desertized. And the entire continent called as Africa has become dry. People started moving out. They moved in all directions. They moved towards Europe. They crossed Suez, entered Asia. They swam through the oceans and reached Americas. They have a different blend of genetic makeup and cross consummation led to different types of skin tones. And the same DNA structure is found across the world, be it South America, be it North America, be it India, be it Australasia. And why so much of climatic change? Even if you take the example of South America, the Yucatan Peninsula, south of Mexico, down to Argentina, in the year from 800 AD around, the Mayan civilization was in its prime period, with its hub in Machu Picchu. Suddenly, overnight, as if it is overnight, the entire civilization vanished. Till date, there is a biggest mystery. What happened to these priests of Machu Picchu? What happened to the priests of the pyramids? The pyramids of Egypt, the pyramids of Sudan? What happened to all these people? What happened to all these wise men? People are also saying that Atlantic civilization. People are also calling about civilization of Sumeria or Mu. There are so many wise men across many, many continents which have been submerged into oceans, which have been lost by way of Mayan civilization, by way of great African civilization in all its forms, maybe through climatic changes, through desertification, through soil erosion, through lack of rain, lack of agriculture, lack of food, so many reasons. What happened to the wisdom? Is wisdom has been destroyed because of climatic changes? Our wisdom is not actually transferred from generation to generation through their own teachings? What happened to the wisdom? Why the wisdom has been not really available? Is this wise man are killed, wiped out from the mother face of the mother earth so as to destroy the wisdom? Because if you take the libraries of Alexandria, after Takshila and Nalanda, oldest libraries of the world, which are located in India, the present India is an example of Nalanda Library, and Takshila, which is in Peshawar, Pakistan, two greatest libraries of the world. Another largest and greatest library is Alexandria in Egypt. When they have burnt, it burned for months together. All the documents were written in papyrus. What happened to these papyrus sheets? Are there any documents available to showcase the wisdom of Africa? Is it only hieroglyphs or petroglyphs or geoglyphs through which we have to study all these things? Or even is there something else to study more? What happened to the teachers of Isis? What happened to the teachers of Hermes Majesticus? What happened to all the great wisdom of this great wise men since the days of Pharaoh? What happened to all these things? And how do you see the transfer of wisdom in terms of desertification, in terms of climatic changes? Is it because of all these climatic changes Africa has become dry? Or is it because of this the wisdom has gone and dispelled, disseminated in different ways and is not available to us? What is your take on it, Meredith Bill? How do you see things?
It it's a deep mystery to me because, as you say, over time there's been so much human knowledge acquired from experience, which is, the deepest knowledge is a direct result of experiential information. Um, so the struggle to survive from the standpoint of harmony or disharmony with your environment. And when we talk about climate and human beings, our earlier part of our discussion, when we talked about everything being dependent, everything is interconnected. So our internal universe and our behavior affects the external universe. So if we have a desertification of spirituality inside a human being, the expression of that, or that the void, the lack of humanity that winds up being expressed when we're disconnected from this harmony with ourselves and harmony with the environment. I think they're all always reflecting the same thing. But it's still a deep mystery to me how it seems that there have been so many wise, enlightened human beings over time. And the fact that human beings in such great numbers today seem to be disconnected from that information is mind-boggling to me. I was born in 1953, and somewhere maybe in some decades after that, in at least the American education system, they started removing critical thinking from the curriculum. And when you remove critical thinking, you're disabling human beings from making wise decisions. So couple that with the removal of art and music from the curriculum decades ago, and the number of young people we have coming up, matriculating through a process that has disconnected them from art and music and the spirituality we talked about being inherent in the resonance of those disciplines. It seems that society is intentionally dumbing down such a large percentage of the population, and then afraid of the bright human beings that are sharing light. We've seen throughout time the persecution of conscious individuals by people who were afraid of their power being lost or challenged to the legitimacy of whatever they're talking about. So somewhere, I think it comes out of the fundamental darkness inherent within life, and us as individual human beings not controlling our own fundamental darkness, and it maybe becoming contagious. I don't know. The bottom line is I don't know the answer to your question, and I've been pondering it myself. It's like, as I study, because I grew up reading the biographies of scientists. My grandmother's older sister was the first Black woman from Texas to receive a PhD, and she built a school back in 1917. And she sent me science books, so that's how I got really connected to science, and reading the biographies of George Washington Carver and Tesla and Einstein and all of these people made me really curious, and I just really enjoyed consuming all of that material. And because she was steeped in education and ingrained that in throughout our family, it became an important tool to elevate our whole um, family and community. So, say it again. Yeah. So where did all the wisdom go? It's still there.
Yes.
And back, I think it was the global forum. So that must have been one of the was that Kyoto. So that was the second, I think the second climate gathering.
So in the year 2022,
say it again.
In the year 2022, 2022, 2 years from now, we are going to have 2 global events in each continent from the World United. So for Africa, I suppose that a global event on awakening of ancient wisdom should be there. For Australia, we have already announced the dates of 2022, 2 major events, 2 global events. One is titled as Youth of the World United, inviting all youth leaders of the world from 16 to 40. Yes, I think no one else, including you, Meredith or Esther, no one else, Edmund Lardla, will accept that you have become old. I know for sure.
Yeah, because Kyoto was the first time I think they really started focusing on not losing the wisdom that's still around. The wisdom that's in the rainforest, and when the wisdom that's in the heart of Africa and Asia and South America and the rest of the world. The fact that they were realizing that we're losing these people and losing this information, and especially the people like in the rainforest who have centuries of experience and skill and wisdom in managing that environment, if which is a treasure for humanity. So I think we've not done enough, because even in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I personally experienced the death of maybe 40 or 50 traditional healers, people like Dr. Sebi, Dr. Yugandhar, just kind of like, some of them mysterious circumstances, some of them just disappeared, but it really started to worry me that this body of knowledge that's out there can continue to just dwindle unless we capture it. And we live in a society where we have all these technical tools now, the ability to condense and document a whole massive amount of information, but it's too much information and not enough knowledge. And the transfer of information, or the transformation of information into knowledge, and the critical knowledge we need to behave as enlightened human beings, is what's missing.
Yeah. So even if you observe the world, other parts of the world, the ancient Indian wisdom, the ancient wisdom that has been there in India, as I was talking about, Vedas, Upanishads, Vedangas, so many sutras, like Shiva Sutras and all, so many sutras with principles, and all related subjects like Vashishta Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, So many Gita, all these so many scriptures and treatises. We don't know where they are. All that are available in the market are the transliterated versions, what the author has perceived, not what it was 1,000 years back, 2,000 years back. The real Buddhist teachings after the formation of the Buddhist council, immediately after death of Gautam Buddha, the global council of Buddhism have brought out so many sutras. His important disciples like Maudgalyayana, Sariputra, his own son Rahul, so many other people. It is said that only 20 people who lived with Buddha were enlightened. Not all. So all these people, along with other scholars of Buddhism, gathered together to release so many texts. Nobody knows what happened. What is available is only transliterated parts. Adolf Hitler was very much interested in all these ancient scriptures and knowledge. He has sent his emissaries across the world. He has sent people to India, to Tibet, to Egypt, to Africa, to bring all the scriptures, ancient scriptures, because his educational qualification was Bachelor of Occult Sciences. He studied degree, Bachelor of Occult Sciences, in Vienna, Austria, in those days, before he reached Germany and became the captain of Nazi army, who has systematically killed millions of people. But his background, educational background, was occult sciences. He was so much interested in occult. He was very much interested to the history of Shambhala, the forbidden city of Himalayas, the city of ancient wise men. He was interested in all these things, all types of people who are the custodians and beholders of wisdom, all the Celtic tribes, all the Saxon tribes, the Jutes tribes of Ireland, the Scotland, all the Germanic tribes who had traveled from Normandy to Scandinavian countries. What happened to the wisdom of Normandy? The ancient priests hold a lot of wisdom. The William the Conqueror, the king of Normandy, was having a lot of priests, a lot of wise men surrounding in his vicinity.
We also can't discount, I was saying we also can't discount the impact of ancient wisdom being trampled at the brutal feet of religion and the various assault by folks who wanted to use religion for control, and in the process trampled on ancient wisdom because it wasn't convenient for the narrative or for their objective. And I think part of what we are trying to do, even in this conference, is seek that point of harmonies so that that doesn't occur again. We disable or disarm, defang the negative potential of religion to suppress ancient wisdom. That's where I think we need to be heading.
Yes. So the distilled knowledge can be called as wisdom. If you put all the data into mixie and bring out one drop of nectar, that can be called as wisdom. In fact, the word knowledge in Latin means not about knowing. The exact meaning of the word knowledge is understanding. Mm-hmm. And the energy of this understanding can be called as wisdom. So knowledge per se is wisdom, practically speaking, experientially speaking. But we, the adults, have been preparing our children to say that knowledge is data, knowledge is information. So becoming knowledgeable means collecting a lot of data. So that's how we have been preparing our children. That's how we have been prepared for our own elders.
Yes, but we're overwhelmed with information. What we need to develop is our ability to discern truth from falsehood. And you know, because we have more information than we've ever had on this planet, and people are maybe less wise than they've ever been in mass. So it's not the amount of information, it's what you do with the information.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
so we all have a lot of work to do.
A lot of work. So in 2022,
but as you were saying, is, you know, the solution is the young people.
yeah,
The fact that Africa's demographic, which is what, 75% of the population is under 35, and in some countries that's an even higher percentage. And so it means that it's either a great opportunity or it's going to be big trouble, depending upon what we do or don't do with that population.
yeah.
But we have a tremendous opportunity to take, you know, what they're calling the demographic dividend, the power and energy and vitality and potential of this huge population of young minds that can change the world. So all it takes is one person. We've seen that many times. All it takes is one person to change everything.
Yeah.
So in this gathering we've had the last few days.
So under your
this gathering the last several days, we have at least one. Yeah. Say it again.
Under your captaincy, under your stewardship, yes, we will see that the ancient African wisdom again gets revived. We'll plan an event in 2022 with all collaborations of many people who are working in this direction, and we'll make it a grand event. And here we got a wonderful dignitary, Andre Rahal. So welcome.